One phone call changed everything for me. It was a typical Monday morning when I received the call from an unknown number. My gut told me something was off, and it was my instincts that made me pick up the phone. "Hi, is this John?" a woman's voice said. I confirmed it was indeed me, and she introduced herself as Sarah Johnson, a former employee of Oakwood Corporation. What followed was a 30-minute conversation that would leave me speechless. Sarah revealed to me that her sister, Emily Wilson, had been working at Oakwood for over 5 years. She was a high-profile executive, responsible for managing the company's global finances. But what Sarah shared next shook me to my core. Emily had been embezzling millions from the company. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Millions? That number echoed in my head as Sarah explained that Emily had been using her position to launder funds through a complex network of offshore accounts and shell companies. The sheer scale of the operation left me reeling. Oakwood Corporation, with its headquarters in downtown Manhattan, had been quietly siphoning off millions from unsuspecting investors. Sarah continued to explain that she had discovered her sister's scheme by accident while reviewing their family's financial records. Emily had started small, initially taking a few $100,000 for herself. But as time went on and the amounts grew, Sarah realized her sister was in way over her head. She confessed that Emily's desperation had turned into a full-blown addiction to embezzlement. As I listened to Sarah's account, I couldn't help but wonder how many others were involved. Were there any other high-ranking officials aware of Emily's actions? And what about the investors who had entrusted Oakwood with their life savings? Sarah revealed that she had initially planned to expose her sister on her own but soon realized it was a risk too great for her to take alone. The fear of retaliation and exposure had forced her into hiding, making the decision to contact me in desperation. With this new information, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. It was time to dig deeper, uncover more evidence, and shine a light on Oakwood Corporation's dark secret. To understand how Emily Wilson managed to embezzle millions from Oakwood Corporation, it's essential to grasp the basics of corporate accounting and financial management. A company like Oakwood has multiple layers of accounting, including payroll, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. These systems are designed to track income and expenses in real time. However, Emily exploited a common loophole used by some high-profile executives, creating shell companies that appear to be legitimate but serve as fronts for money laundering. She had set up several such entities in tax havens like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, using them to funnel Oakwood's funds into her own personal accounts. According to documents I obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request, Emily created at least 5 shell companies between 2015 and 2020. These companies were registered under fake names, such as Green Oak Investments and Seaforth Holdings. Their sole purpose was to receive and distribute the embezzled funds. It's worth noting that this is not an isolated incident. According to a report by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, 2019 saw a 20% increase in corporate fraud cases worldwide, with many involving complex money laundering schemes. As I continued to research and interview sources, I discovered that Emily's actions were not an isolated incident. In fact, she was part of a larger network of individuals involved in embezzlement and money laundering within Oakwood Corporation. One key player in this web was Alexei Petrov, the company's former chief financial officer, CFO. According to sources, Petrov had been quietly working with Emily since 2018, providing her with access to sensitive financial information and helping her cover her tracks. But what's more disturbing is that Petrov had a history of questionable dealings. In 2015, he was involved in a high-profile scandal at another corporation, where he allegedly embezzled millions through a complex Ponzi scheme. Despite this, Oakwood hired him as their CFO just 2 years later. This raises questions about the company's due diligence and internal controls. How could they have overlooked such red flags? Were there any attempts to investigate or address these issues internally? While Emily Wilson and Alexei Petrov were at the center of this web, I discovered that several other individuals within Oakwood Corporation played a role in enabling their actions. One key enabler was Rachel Lee, a senior accountant who worked directly under Payoff. According to sources, Lee had been aware of Emily's embezzlement scheme since 2019 but chose not to report it due to fear of retaliation. This raises important questions about corporate culture and the role of employees in reporting suspicious activity. Are there adequate whistleblower protections in place? How do companies foster an environment where employees feel comfortable speaking up? As I dug deeper, I discovered that regulatory bodies had been aware of Oakwood Corporation's questionable practices for years but failed to take decisive action. In 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) conducted a routine audit of Oakwood's financial records. However, according to documents obtained through FOIA, the SEC did not pursue any further investigation despite finding material weaknesses in the company's internal controls. Similarly, in 2020, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority (FINRA) launched an investigation into allegations of embezzlement and money laundering within Oakwood. However, sources close to the investigation revealed that FINRA ultimately dropped the case due to lack of evidence. These lapses raise important questions about regulatory oversight and accountability. Are there adequate safeguards in place to prevent corporate malfeasance? How do regulatory bodies ensure that companies are held accountable for their actions? As news of Oakwood Corporation's embezzlement scheme broke, the company's stock price plummeted by over 20%. Investors lost millions, and several high-ranking officials were forced to resign. But what about Emily Wilson? In a stunning turn of events, she was arrested in January 2022 on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Her sister, Sarah, testified against her in court, citing the devastating impact of her actions on their family. This case highlights the importance of corporate accountability and regulatory oversight. It also underscores the devastating consequences of unchecked power and greed within corporations. The phone call from Sarah Johnson that morning marked a turning point for me. It forced me to confront the darker side of corporate America, where millions are embezzled and hidden behind closed doors. This investigation revealed a complex web of connections between high-ranking officials, shell companies, and regulatory lapses. As I reflect on this case, I'm left with more questions than answers. What can be done to prevent such cases in the future? How can we ensure that corporate executives are held accountable for their actions? But one thing is clear, it's time to shine a light on the dark secrets lurking behind closed doors. We must hold corporations and individuals accountable for their actions, and work towards creating a more transparent and just society. The case of Oakwood Corporation serves as a stark reminder that corporate malfeasance can have far-reaching consequences. It's up to us to demand accountability and transparency in our financial institutions, and to fight against the corrupting influence of power and greed.